All right, we have our last lesson of lowercase letters, and this is our descender group of lowercase letters. We've done some descenders before. We did our P descender, which is going to look exactly like the descenders here in these letters in this group. And then we also did our Q and our F, which has that loop that goes the other way. But here are really the main group of descender letters with the J, G, Y, and our Z. And we'll go through each one of these. And the J starts just like an I here, just like you're making an I. And then you're just making this descending loop like that. And we dot it just like we dot our I, halfway between that X height and the TD line. Very simple letter. Do it again, crossing at the baseline. Oop, let me dot it. Yeah, we're crossing right here at the baseline. That's key. We want to bring this all the way down to the descender line. I missed it just by a hair there. And on the exit here, I'm doing kind of a compound curve exit on this, as if I was going to go into, let's say, an E. But you can also finish the J with an overturn, like that. All right. Either way, and which one you make will obviously determine on what letters you're connecting into, and we'll see that in a second when we practice some words. Let's do our G, which, just like that J, it's based on one of our previous letters, and you should be able to see it's the letter A. You can see that A right here in the body of the letter. So with the G, you can have your entry stroke or omit it. I'm going to put it in there, make my A, and then I'm just making this descending stroke, bringing it down to the descender line, sharp turn, crossing up through the baseline, finishing with that compound curve move. Do it again. A stroke, coming down on our main slant. This is our main slant here. Definitely want to be hitting that. Here's our connective slants. All right, that's the G. Let's look at the Y. Now the Y is really like making our X, okay? You know, here's our X stroke. And then we just add our descending loop to it. So again, we're just adding on to a letter we've already learned, which is why we did those letters first. We see those shapes over and over again. And now when you're practicing letters like this, really all you need to get is this loop part. Once you have that, you're just adding the letters that you've already learned. So with this Y, we want this downstroke to be on our main slant, and we want the loop to be on our main slant. That's a common problem I'll see with the Y, is that it'll be too rounded like this. And then you get going like this, and now you have downstrokes on this direction and in this direction, and that is not what we're going for with this script. You want to have that Y be right on that main slant, coming out just like an X, and then finishing with the loop, crossing at the baseline. All right, then we have our Z, which is a slightly different type of descending loop. So if you notice with the Z, we're not coming straight down through the baseline here. You know, we're not going like this, okay? There's this little hump here in the letter, and that little hump causes us to go in the horizontal direction to the right, and then we make our loop. So when we make our loop with the Z, we're going to have this roundness to the back and the front side of the loop, okay? Whereas if you look at our I, it's straight back. So with the Z, first we make this move just like an N, okay? That's just like the beginning of an N. I could write an N here instead. All right, so definitely see that first. This is just a connective stroke with a tight turn into a downstroke. Then we just do this little hump like that, and we go into our more rounded descender that we're still crossing at the baseline, okay? A lot of people have trouble with the Z. It's not a common letter to use in the English alphabet, but it is there in a lot of different words. But you know, you have the exemplar, you have the worksheets. Go ahead and trace. Go ahead and trace these if you have to, and just to see what it feels like. I'll do it one more time. Making our N just a little tiny. Actually, like that one better. That one's really on the slant that I'm going for here. That's our main slant. This one was a little upright, but I can see that now that I did it better. And this is the problem I think a lot of people have, is that maybe they'll be okay here, but then they'll just let this come out here like this too far. Now you have a letter where everything's getting away from you to the right. You don't want that, and the slant of the letter is in this direction. Got to think about bringing everything down on that main slant. So making that N move, and then just a small hump here. You don't need to bring that out way to the right. I can even do it better than that. That's the move. See how straight up and down? That was wrong. That was way too straight up and down. This one is much better on the slant. If you fail at this part, you're going to fail on the letter. The letter's going to be too far upright like that. Boom, just like that. All right, let's do some words with these letters. Start with jug, which contains two of our letters that we've just learned. Start with this J, which is just like the I. Compound curve into this U. And then into our G to finish. Making that A shape, descending all the way down on our slant line. And finishing with the loop. Everything's looking good here. I'm on slant with all of these letters. Spacing maybe a little bit wider here than here, but I'm not going to be too picky about it. All right, let's look at they. Very common word to write. Start with our T. Into our ascender H. Crossing at that X height. I'm going to move the paper a bit. Into our Y. And do our loop here. And I'll finish with the overturn there. Let me cross my T. Notice how I turn the paper to cross the T. That's more natural for me to write in this direction. Like this, it's hard to cross the T when you're in this orientation with the paper. So just turn it this way. This is more natural. Everything's looking good here. This Y, this entry stroke into the Y, maybe a little upright. I want to make sure that I'm bringing that down on my main slant. Like that. All right. I want both of those slant lines to match in this letter. All right, let's do another Y letter. Your, very popular word. Entry stroke, just like I'm doing an X. Go down to my descender, cross at the baseline, and overturn into that O, okay? We know an O has an overturn entry. So when I'm coming out of this Y, I don't need to do anything fancier. Just keep going with that overturn into the O. Then underturn into my U. And finish with the R. Looking good. This U maybe just got under the baseline a tad, so did the O. Not a big deal. Everything else is looking good there in that letter. All right, glitzy. Lots of opportunities to mess this one up. See how I do. I'm going to omit the entry stroke because we don't need to do with, we're starting to learn with that, when we're starting a word with that A shape. And I'm going to go from this descender to ascender, one of the hardest moves in handwriting, crossing at the baseline, going up. And then I'm going to stop here, move my page. And we'll go into our T. Come down into our Z. Make sure we're coming down on that main slant here. Small hump. Crossing at the baseline. Finish with the Y. Cross my T, dot my I. All right. Shape, the one thing I'm seeing with shape here that was a little off is you can see there's a little space above the X height in this T. I want to make sure I'm really retracing this upstroke on the T when I come down. So I could have brought it down in a little more of this direction instead of this direction. This Y here was a little round at the top here. I want a little sharper turn on that Y. Other than that, everything's looking pretty good. This connection's looking great between that G. Oh, shape-wise or size-wise, I didn't bring the Z all the way down to the descender. Something to look out for there with the Z's.